This is not going to be one of those videos where they make you wait until the very end to answer the question in the headline. No, the system is rigged. But it's not just rigged. Rigged is a word that can mean many things. And in this video, I want to talk about some of the different things that it can mean. And I want to tell you one of the ideas that I came up with today. This is a response basically to a panel that I watched at Politicon today, the first day of Politicon. And Cenk was moderating a panel that had to do with free and fair elections. And the question of if the system is rigged, first of all, is it? And if it is, how is it rigged and how can we help to fix that situation? And so people say the system is rigged, and they mean many different things. First of all, you can be talking about different systems. You can be talking about the political system, the economic system. You can be talking about a smaller system, but those are the two main ones that we talk about. And rigged can mean many different things. Now, traditionally, when you think about something being rigged, you think of like a game at a carnival, where it seems like you should be able to accomplish something. There's an implicit agreement, and yet it is designed in a way that makes it extremely difficult for you to achieve what seems achievable. And so that's what people mean, but they don't necessarily mean in the same way that traditionally that term is used. It doesn't mean in every possible way that there is someone behind the scenes who's pushing the buttons to make sure that you can't win, and by the way, you can't win. It doesn't have to mean that. It can mean a lot of different things. It can be from some mastermind who has made a victory impossible, all the way down to mistakes happen in a way that hurts some people more than others. And there's about 150 different other ways that the system is rigged, the political system, between those two extremes. And it's important to look at the different examples because some of them are ones that are intentional and people need to be taken out of their positions to fix them. Some of them are accidental, and it needs to be fixed so that accidents don't happen. Some of them are technology ways that the system is rigged, that technology can be replaced. And so I want to talk about some of the examples that were given on the panel, some of the ones that seem particularly relevant to me. I mean, there are things like gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is one of the ways that the political system is rigged, that elections are rigged. And how you fix gerrymandering, how you stop gerrymandering from happening, is very different than how you say, stop the DNC chair from being someone who has previously worked on the campaigns of one of the people running for the presidency that year. Those are two very different problems. Now, if ballots aren't being counted fast enough so that they don't have a strong effect on the election, like is happening in California, that's one thing that can be fixed. If ballots are being thrown away in some cases because there are people who don't want the ballots to be counted in those particular areas, that's a different problem. Some of them are problems of the system being set up in a way that is inefficient and that really hurts everybody in general if you look at enough elections. Some are specific to an election and are designed to hurt one candidate. So there's things like, as I said, there's people who are throwing away ballots, people who, there have been a lot of credible cases of people talking about they were watching at their caucus and people were literally writing down the number of people for each candidate on their hand, and when their hand got sweaty, they decided, fuck it, I'll give a bunch to Hillary and maybe a couple to Bernie, and then we'll call it a day. Which is a very different thing. You have, for instance, the fact that the way that we run our elections is set up in a way that generally you will end up with that system, with a two-party system. And we have found that. It's the law, Duverger's law, which is when you have a ballot with a certain number of people on it and one vote goes to one candidate who wins, then often people will feel like if they were to vote for a third party, that third party will not win and their vote will be wasted in that case. Now, there are ways that you could fix that, for instance. Caucuses versus primaries, open primaries versus closed primaries versus mixed primaries, the way that you set up a primary calendar. All of these different things are ways that the political system can be rigged, and all of them require different solutions, different fixes. Some of them relatively simple, with widespread appeal. For instance, we don't have an election day where we don't have to work, where we can have democracy day. And on election day, you just talk about politics and you think about politics and then you go and vote and then you post it all on social media. Democracy Day. It would be amazing. We don't have that. Instead, you need to fit in voting amongst taking care of your kids and hopefully eating, going to the gym and working out. And for a lot of people who don't necessarily follow politics as closely as you and I on a daily basis, that is either a kind of hard obstacle to overcome or effectively an unovercomable one. And for a lot of Americans, if they had the day off, might vote that don't now. And that is extremely popular, by the way, the idea of having that day off or having the election on a Saturday or on a Sunday. That is not a controversial thing, but it's not being pushed for by the Republicans or by the Democrats, which is interesting. Now, fixing that and fixing the fact that the leadership of the DNC can be in the tank for one candidate, very different things. Now, I don't have a solution for all of these. I have some solutions. Electing a new slate of candidates to replace the established lower leadership and upper leadership who's allowing many of these policies to continue and is certainly not challenging them in the way that we would like. That's overall the solution. Some of them, though, would require constitutional amendments or at the very least changes to laws. If you want to change the way that we run our elections so that third parties have a better chance, there are ways that you can do that, and some that I was exposed to today that I would love to talk about. But it's not the Democrats that can change that. It's not any one party that can change that. Some of it might literally require a constitutional amendment to change the way that we run our presidential elections. And these are very interesting and very complicated and very necessary if we want our system to not be rigged at some point in the future. It's not one thing that can be cured by one candidate or one election. It is many overlapping layers of riggedness that we need to understand if we're going to fix. And so what I would like to do, because this is important, this is something that people are thinking about, I would like to start a series of videos where we break down particular ways that the system is rigged and particular ways that we can fix it, that we can unrig the system. And so that might be an episode on gerrymandering, an episode on first past the post voting, an episode on caucuses versus primaries. All of these things require thought. Simply because the majority of the primary is over doesn't mean that we can forget about these things for 4 years. Because if we don't do anything about it now, then we're going to hit that next primary, and it's going to be too late to change it at that point. And if we want the revolution to continue, if we want it to go beyond simply political policies, if we want it to go to changing the core process with which our election is run, then these are the issues that we need to focus on. And we need to make sure that the politicians, those who can actually change it, focus on it as well in the interim between now and the next election. And so I'm going to try to start doing those videos. If you have suggestions, ways that you think the system is rigged in a way that guarantees a certain sort of outcome for a certain sort of person, you can let me know, and I'll see you in the next one.